My name is Max Sperando. I'm from Constellation Energy. And today we'll be showing you the end user reporting tool, which is available in the Appian app market. But for context, let me tell you a little bit about Constellation and why we feel that this tool is a very valuable tool for you guys to use. So as the nation's largest producer of carbon-free and low-emissions energy, Constellation provides roughly 10% of total clean power and 22% of clean baseload power across the United States. A large source of that carbon-free power comes from our fleet of 12 nuclear power plants operating at record-setting performance. And as you can imagine, successfully managing and operating the top nuclear fleet in the country takes several smart people and a lot of time-sensitive information. So what that translates to is lots and lots of reports and dashboards, based on system and performance monitoring and human performance monitoring. We trend and analyze this data to ensure our plants are operating at peak levels. We've been an Appian customer since 2017. Since that time, we've built approximately 40 workflow applications in various manual and paper-based tasks. And to go alongside these applications, obviously, like most of you, we build reports and dashboards to help our employees perform their work. I don't know about everyone here, but every time we build an application, people are amazed at how much data we collect. And every time we build a new report, someone asks us to build a slightly different report, and that problem just keeps repeating itself. So that brings us to our use case. So for years, we went to Appian World and met with product experts to help build the program or the platform. And every year we asked them, when will Appian build an end user reporting tool so that we can offset our development costs onto the end user for reports? So what we needed was something that was easy for end users to use, that they could build reports and dashboards with Appian data. We struggled deciding between using an external BI solution like Power BI, or that would, we would have to manage the data externally, manage the data security externally. We struggled with using something like that, or using custom-built Appian reports internally. It was also very costly for us to develop reports both inside and outside of the platform. We would rather use our development time and money on building new features and building new applications, and not on building reports. What Michael built was what we were looking for. It was a BI tool inside Appian that users could use and build dashboards and reports from Appian application data. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael, who built the application and the tool. He's going to give you a demo, and it should be really exciting.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
All right, I think I'm going to just skip through a few slides here. I'll just go straight to this, yeah. All right, so Max talked about the business use case and the value the business is getting out of the tool. I want to talk a little bit about why I built this tool now. Like, why is this the right time to build a BI tool in Appian? And really, it comes down to these new features that have been coming out for the last couple of years around synced records, row-level security, record-backed reporting that finally made a tool like this possible. And it made it possible to build a tool that an end user could use, that it's going to be intuitive, it's going to be performant, it's going to be very straightforward, and they don't need to be explained. They don't need to be a developer. They can truly be a business user, use the tool, build the reports that they want to build. So it really came back. Record-backed reports was the big one, right? There used to be the need to create views, you had to make query entities, you had to bring the data together, you had to massage it, and then put it into your chart. Every single chart was different. You had to build these things over and over and over. And then they built record-backed reporting. On top of it, you just point at a record type, you give it a grouping, you give it a measure, and you call it a day, right? And that's something anybody can do. You don't need to be a developer to do it. So what you're looking at here is the application. So as Max said, it's on the app market. You can get it for free. It's an application, has some prerequisites for other plugins, but there's also like a component plugin that goes along with it that has additional reports. I'll show that in a bit. But yeah, everything you're seeing here would be developed by an end user, right? So this is the home page. This is where all of your dashboards are going to show up. The application really it's two parts, so two main parts with some peripherals around that. The first one being creating reports. Obviously, that's the big one, right? I want to create reports. I want to be able to filter them. I want to choose the data that I want. I want to choose the record type that I want. I want to choose the chart type that I want. And then once I have all my charts, I want to put them together in a nice, pleasing interface. And I want to filter the data together, and I want to be able to export the data together, because it's really, it's all, you need all that data in one place in order to make your decisions, right? So that's the concept. So I'm going to touch on creating a creating a report first. So what you're seeing right now is an ACE community site. So ACE community sites, you can get them for free. You just go to community, you can sign up. It comes with a couple apps on it, one of them being an order fulfillment app, another one being a maintenance request app. So I'm going to mostly create reports for the maintenance, so this vehicles, maintenance requests. But yeah, I have the dashboard you were looking at was actually the order fulfillment dashboard. So creating a report, pretty simple. So everything I'm going to show right now is going to be from like the end user perspective. If you're interested in the development perspective, like what a designer needs to do to set this up for your organization, come talk to me afterwards, and I can sort of take you through that. I don't want to give you guys the false impression that you drop this in, you got reports, right? There is a setup procedure you need to set up. You need to have records. You can't build it based on just CDTs and query entities. You need to set up your records. You need to say, like, these are the fields that I want my end users to be able to use. These are the relationships and fields in other record types that I want them to be able to use. It doesn't require sync records. You can use CDTs, nested CDTs. You can use views. But sync records are definitely going to be the most performant and easiest way to use it. So as an end user, I come into this, and I have to choose a record type, and I have to choose a report type. So pretty straightforward. I've only configured a few record types. I think Constellation has, I don't know, 50 or 60 record types configured. So that's maybe when you have that much data, you're going to need to figure out, well, is this what I need to look at? So that's why there's this data preview. You can choose a record type, take a look at what data is in that record type, say, OK, this is what I want to make a report against. Now, what kind of report do I want to make? I'm going to start with the simplest type, which is we're finding the most frequently used type as well, just a grid. So I'm going to make a report of the vehicles grid here, and the next thing a user would do is they're just going to choose the columns that they want to associate with that report. So I want to make my grid have a make, model, color, status, category, mileage, maybe a picture of the vehicle, right? So you'll see here I've selected all the columns that I want to show up in my grid. I also have some other options, like changing the label of the column. I can change the format of the column. If I want some columns to be different widths, I can configure that in my report as well. I'll do one format. I'm going to take that image, which is a document in Appian, and I want to render it as a picture on my grid. So I'll just choose a small image here. All right, so the next thing you might want to do, typically reports aren't just show me all the information in the system. Usually you're wanting to filter down that report. So that is what the filters are used for. So this is, if you're a designer in Appian, you're basically building a logical expression here. So it can be a group of filters that are going to be ORed or ANDed together. In this case, I'm going to do a really simple one, which is just show me all of the vehicles that are going to be in a list of vehicles that I've configured. So I'll just say Chevy and Ford. So you have other options. You can set up the sorts. You can choose the paging. You can do some styling options like borders or how dense your grid is. And you can also set up filters. So these are the ones that just come with your record type. And you can say, I want these filters to appear on my grid here. Finally, there's some additional features like toggles, turning off the refresh button, turning off the search box. You might see some of that later. So that's it. I've set up a report. I've created the columns. I've created the formatting. I've put in some filters. And here's my grid. And that's it. I've made a new report of vehicles. So I would give it a name. I can tag it so I can find it easily later. And then there's visibility. So this is a really important thing. And this is something that when I had built it originally didn't have. And Max said, you need to build this. We need it. We don't want to just have reports available to everybody or reports available to one person. We want to be able to share our reports like we're sharing Google documents, right? So there's a concept of private reports, which are just for me, or public reports, which are for everyone. right? So that's how it starts initially. So I need to choose, for this example, I'm just going to make it a private report, which only I can view. So that's not incredibly useful because maybe I want to share that report with my team, but I don't want to share it necessarily with everybody. So that's where this concept of sharing comes in. So you have your report. It's been showing up on my list here, and I can do a lot of things to it. I can take a look, preview it, export it as a CSV or Excel, edit it, make a copy of it. I'll talk about notifications later. But what I want to talk about right now is sharing that report. So I have a report. It's private, only I can view it, but maybe I want to share it with my team. Maybe I want to share it with Max. I just come in here, I can put in a user or group there, share my report, and then I can give them sort of permissions on that report. So say I want to share that report with Max, I might want to make him an owner or an editor of that report so he can make changes to that report. So I don't have to own it myself, and my whole team could edit it, and we could manage it together. So Max would get an email saying a report has been shared with you. You can come in and take a look at it and make changes to it. All right, so that's a grid. Grids are pretty straightforward. I want to do one more report, which is just more of an aggregation style report. So again, I'm going to stick with the theme of maintenance requests. And in this case, instead of doing a report that's just a grid, I want to show a bar chart or a column chart. And I want to group by the make and model of the car and just count the number of service requests against that make and model. So again, first thing I'm always going to do is what data am I working with? Well, I want to pull back a make and model, and I want to count the number of service requests. So that's three things I need to work with. I need to pull back the make, I need to pull back the model, and I want to count the number of service requests. So this is where I'm talking about the abstraction layer that the record back reporting really allowed us to do. I want to build two groupings in my make and model, and I want to do one measure. I want to count the number of requests, right? And that's it. I've set it up. I've set up my report. I have to choose a primary and a secondary grouping. That might need name changes if you guys, that's really Appian terminology, and I get stuck in the weeds sometimes because I've been working on Appian for 10 years. But yeah, if you have better ideas, just let me know. You group by make and model, count the number of requests, and that's my chart. Now, I'm going to show you this chart. It's not going to look great right away, and that's because of the way my data is, spread amongst a bunch of different models. So every car make, Chevy, Ford, Honda, has a lot of different models. Only a few of them have maintenance requests. So this is where those styling options come in. Maybe I want to stack all those on top of each other and see my maintenance requests per make, but have all the models stacked on top. So that's where you might do a chart stacking. So they're all stacked on top of each other. I can see which make has the most requests, and then take a look at the different boxes and see which model amongst those requests is the most prevalent. And then maybe I can do other things like drill down into another report. So say I'm looking at my column chart and I see, okay, the F-150 has a lot of maintenance requests. Let me click on that and see what they are and find out more information. So in this case, I'll choose a drill down so we can take a look at that. Drill down, where's that? Vehicles, maintenance requests. Oh, just look at the vehicles, yeah. And then I'll turn off the legend just to make it a little bit cleaner. Take a look at the report now. So it'll look a little bit cleaner. You'll be able to tell what make and model, what makes have the most service requests, and amongst them, which models have the most service requests. So I'll just call this vehicle maintenance by make and model. All right, so that's an example making a grid. That's an example making a column chart. So that's, as I said, that's like half the application. Half the application is building your reports. The other half is sort of surfacing them in a pleasing UI, so with the dashboarding part of the application. So very similar to the reports, you've got another grid of all of the dashboards that are accessible to you. So these might be public dashboards, or dashboards you've created, or things that people have shared with you. So I'm going to go ahead and create a dashboard, very similar wizard type process. In this case, I'm choosing the template, what I want my dashboard to look like. And then I'm just filling it in with reports. So let me put a grid of vehicles in here. And maybe down here, I want to put that new report with maintenance requests. And up here, maybe I'll put a bar chart of how many vehicles I have per each make. And once I have all my reports on the dashboard, then I can go and start adding additional features to my dashboard. So the real power of dashboards comes when you start adding filters that filter down the whole dashboard. So just not just one report, but you can filter the entire dashboard of data. So that's the concept of adding a new filter, and I can say, I want to filter down this entire dashboard by the make of the car. So I'll add a new filter here for my dashboard, and I'll give this one a name. And again, public, private, and sharing is all built into the dashboards as well. So once that is complete, I'll take you to the home page and show you sort of where your dashboards show up. So this part takes a little bit of time. All right, so let me take you to the home page. And the home page is going to have my dashboards, and the ones that are starred here are going to be the dashboards that appear on the home page. So you can have more dashboards available to you than appear on your home page, and then you can toggle between them. You can move which ones are in the front, which ones are, initially loaded, or which ones you tab into later. So in this case, I have my dashboard. I've got my 3 reports that I've configured earlier, and then I have the ability to sort of filter down the entire set of dashboard reports by a single make or multiple makes and models. So you can see here all 3 of my dashboards have filtered down. I've got my Ford vehicles. I've got my maintenance requests by Ford and Honda, vehicles met by make. And you get the normal Appian features that you're used to with your grids. You can save your filters. You can set filters as default and manage those as well. So I've talked about, there's a lot of other features I'm not really going to get into now just because of timing, but you've got drill down reports, you've got kind of cross-report drill downs where you click on one report and it filters the rest of the dashboard. There's a lot of other reports that I'll get into, but I'm going to talk about some of the other smaller features in the application that were really driven by Constellation's use case, but I think are beneficial for anybody using the app. And first one is the concept of reporting groups. So often when you're sharing reports, you're sharing them with your team. And you might not have your team built into an Appian group in the application. So that's the concept of build out a reporting group, which you can then add individual users or other groups into this reporting group. And that's what's going to be used when I go and share things. I share it with a reporting group, or I share it with an individual user. So you don't need to have all of your teams built into Appian groups beforehand. That can all be configured in production. Same concept. So that's the reporting group concept. That's used for, as I mentioned, sharing, but it's also used for this other feature, which is this concept of scheduled notification. So you'll notice when you come here, there's nothing available to you immediately, and that's because notifications are really always tied to either a dashboard or a report. So maybe every week you want to send this report to an executive, or maybe every week you want the report sent to you. So that's the concept of go to a report that you've made and just sort of schedule a notification against it. And notification, maybe not the best naming convention, but what it means is that report's just going to be exported and sent to you in an email. So I can give a notification a name. It's tied to a particular report or dashboard. I give it recipients. So maybe I need to send it to my boss, Max. And similar to when you're setting up scheduled meetings in Outlook, you're going to choose kind of a time period that notification is going to be active. So for this month, I want this notification to be sent every day to Max, and he'll just receive an email at that time every day until we hit the end date. All right, so that is the sort of the front end user experience for a business user, a user of Appian, not necessarily a developer. There's some other things. Because it's a front-end app, I've built out a lot of documentation. The user can come in, and if they need to understand how to go about building a report, hopefully the documentation here covers most of those topics. If there's not anything that's missing, make comments on the app market listing so I can update the documentation. And then there's some nice fancy features that I got from the UX team when I asked them to review it, like you can change your colors of your reports, or you can use the dark backgrounds. Yeah. There's a lot of nice things that have been built around it, and I'm updating it, I would say, every couple weeks on the app market at the moment. All right, so I think we're at about 20 minutes. Do you want to do 5 minutes of questions? Any questions? Yes.
How do you incorporate this into existing applications?
All right, that's a good question. So, I can explain exactly how we did it at Constellation. So they had 40 applications that were live by the time we introduced reporting. And we're not going to go back and refactor their applications. It's just not feasible. But what synced records gives you, as long as your application, you're writing to it through a data store, you can just build a synced record right on top of the existing table. You don't need to refactor your application at all. You just say, OK, that table, which is being written to by that application and all of the UIs that are associated with that, also just has this synced record that we built on top of the same table. And it's kept in sync with the table as long as you're not doing stored procedures or like import CSV stuff, then you're golden. And you can just build that synced record, configure it in the reporting application, and you just have reporting against your existing applications. Yeah?
Thank you, that's great. Any questions? Sorry. Thoughts on performance? Are there any concerns about building reports?
So yeah, I mean, you do have the guardrails of. So I guess there's two different situations. Either you're building sync records in which you have all the guardrails that are built to the product. You can't query more than 5,000 things at a time. You're not going to have more than 1 million records in the system, right? But you could also build it on top of views and CDTs. In that case, it's going to be as performant as the underlying data queries are. So the framework is not going to prevent people from making mistakes in those cases. But yeah, I mean, that was one of the big reasons that I went forward with this application now is that, if you're building on top of synced records, which is what I would definitely recommend doing if you're doing it, the product makes sure that it's going to be performant for the guardrails they set in line. Yeah?
So the reporting groups, do you import active directory or something similar?
You could, so I mean, if you're doing group sync, right, you could have your Active Directory groups coming into Appian. You could use them as members of your reporting groups. So you wouldn't be syncing it directly into the application, but you would set up a reporting group and then say, this synced group is that reporting group's membership, and you could get the same functionality that way, but it's not going to sync directly into the app. Yep.
Will users have access to data that they wouldn't otherwise have? Oh.
Yeah, so I didn't really touch on that. So the way that one of the real big, and I think Max touched on this a little bit, the big value of this is it's all on top of record security, right? So you can't see reports that are against records you don't have access to. They just don't show up. Or it might say you don't have access to this report on the dashboard. You don't have access to rows of data the row level security that's been configured. Because at the core of it, I'm not doing any query entities. It's all query records. So all of the record security is automatically kind of baked into the application without you doing anything. Now that being said, you need to build your record security correctly. So historically, people might build out UIs and rely on filters on the UIs rather than building in default filters into the record itself. And you might not have a secured record. So you need to be careful when you build out your records that they're built out in a way that people can't query data they shouldn't have access to. Yeah?
You offering this for any app?
Yeah. Yeah.
I got another for you. So if these users are building this in production, is there a way
So it's not built in production. Oh, sorry, the reports are built in production. The configuration's done in the dev environment.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I'm using as a developer, I want to see what's going on in the dev environment, test environment. Are there mechanisms that we can pull that back?
So you want to see the reports that are in test?
That are being built in production.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, not really. I guess you could ask someone to export it, but yeah. It's a good idea, though. Yep. What does moving this from dev to test look like? Oh, it looks just like an Excel file. Let me see if I can find one. That's a good question. You can do, there's no way to export a chart picture without another server set up. So HiCharts, which is the library we use for JavaScript charts, they have a server you can set and send a file to them, and they'll give you back a picture. With that, you can export dashboards. I did a POC for Max on that. It's there if you want to set it up, but it needs infrastructure. Otherwise, you're just exporting a single report as a file, as a CSV file. Let's see if I can find one. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
You had other chart types that are not normally part
I feel like I planted him in the audience. So as I mentioned before, there's a plugin that goes alongside the app. It's not required, but you might as well use it. It's also free. It's a component plugin, so it gives you more sail interfaces you can use, like sail function interfaces. So there's like a timeline, organization, spider chart. You'll see them when you go to try to create a report. That's something that I might add to in the future as well. If people say this is really kind of chart that I really want to be able to build, but I can't build it right now, that comes kind of alongside, and then you can enable, disable charts that you want people to be able to use on the application. Yes. So the notifications, you can do groups or individual users, but an email associated with, it would just send individual emails to all the people in the groups. But there's no concept of like, I also just want to send it to this generic email address at the moment. Yeah. Yeah, well, no, so that's, yeah, right now it's just users or groups within Appian, but that's definitely something that there's no reason you couldn't build it into the application, but yeah, it's not in the application at the moment.
That's how we maintain data security too. Yeah, we wouldn't want to distribute the list to somebody or send a report out to somebody or distribute that list to somebody that we can't identify. So it has to be an Appian user so we can ensure that data level security. So they can't see stuff in the report that they're not supposed to see.
All right, any other questions? All right, well, that's it for the demo. Yeah, if you're curious about the development aspect and the setup of the application, I can talk to you guys outside. Just tag me. And yeah, otherwise, thank you for coming. And yeah.